Hey guys, Blackbox here. Another video with some interesting approaches. This time we are in New Zealand and we'll fly the Arnov GNSS hotel approach, and we'll do the circling for 05 and of course for runway 23. And as always, I have a chart for you to look at, just so that you know where we are. Presently approaching the point Onadu, and so we'll start the right turn very shortly, and we're descending down to 7,700 feet. Also selecting flaps 1 to slow down the aircraft, and so we'll maintain 7,700 feet until we pass the fix Quebec November 669er, and then we'll descend down to 6,300 feet, which is the final approach altitude. And so at Ikaba we'll start our final descent out of 6,300 feet. We have a 3.29 degree glide profile, and then our MDA is 4,100 feet. And so at Quebec number 603 we have to be with visual contact to the runway. And if that is the case, then we can do our visual circling procedure, which either takes us on a right turn towards runway 23, or otherwise a left and then a right turn onto runway 05. The interesting part, or the most difficult part, is to judge the descent path after we reach the fix Quebec November 611. And for runway 23, so if we do the right turn for runway 23, we can judge that a little bit easier because we'll have the PAPIs inside at a very early stage. Regarding the circling for the runway 05, I'll talk you through that later on once we do that approach. So first of all, we'll do the circling for runway 23. Already inbound towards final fix Ikiba, descending 6,300 feet, and already at config 2 to help us with the final descent. So as you can see at the flight mode annunciator, we're flying this fully managed, so we have final approach indicating. We'll have a look how the Autopilot actually copes with that mode. If we are deviating too much, then we'll revert to selected modes, i.e. FPA, flight path angle. I'm already selecting gear down now in order to avoid the aircraft speeding up. We are now approaching the MDA of 4,100 feet, so I'm gonna switch off the autopilot.
100 above. Minimum.
Runway is in sight, so continue. And from this point onwards, the whole procedure now is completely visual. And just like it says on the chart, we'll continue straight ahead to the next point, Quebec November 611, and there we'll start the right turn for the final circling. And just to make things clear, if for any reason we lose visual contact with the runway, for example, if we enter a cloud, then we would have to perform a missed approach. So I'm just starting a slow, shallow descent now. Always making sure that we maintain visual contact with the runway. Overhead Quebec November 611. And so we'll do the right turn.
Terrain, pull up.
Well, this is to expect it, so we'll switch off the terrain mode. Let's have a quick look at the chart again, and you can see that the circle will just be outside of Quebec November 603. And the reason for this you'll see in a few seconds. And here you can see the reason. It's a little mountain that we cannot fly over. And so we'll pass it to the north and then turn into the valley, which then connects us to the final approach path. Lovely scenery. Now I'm just looking for the runway again, trying to judge the correct altitude and the correct inbound course. So presently we have 3 white, 1 red. Manual thrust. Now we are on the correct glide path, so I'm adjusting the pitch in order to get the correct descent rate, which according to the ground speed should be around 700 feet per minute. Nicely established now on glide path, on centerline. Alright, one more thing to do, and that is to read the landing checklist. So we have ECAM landing, no blue.
$500. $400. $300. $200. $100. $50. $40. $30. $20. Retard.
Whoops, that was rather positive, but never mind. So here we are on runway 23 in Queenstown. Next we'll fly the RNF Cirling for runway 05. As you can see, I've changed the weather a little bit. Winds are now a little bit more from the east, on the ground at least. Have a look at the approach page in the FMS and you can see that I've inserted November Zulu, Quebec November 05, and that gives me the distance to the threshold of runway 05. So presently 11.17 E, and that will come in handy later on when we do the circling towards the runway of 05. Initially we'll fly the approach exactly the same as it is for runway 23, so via Onadu, 7,700 feet, then towards Quebec November 669, maintaining 7,700 feet, and then towards Ikaba we'll descend to the final altitude of 6,300 feet. Right, so we jumped forward a little bit, now approaching Ikaba, and as before, lowering the gear to help us with the descent. This time, however, I'm going to fly the approach with selected mode, i.e. with a flight path angle. Now here you can see that the approach leads through the valley of these mountains left and right. I'm starting up approach now and selecting a descent rate of minus 3.4 degrees. Right, so we've jumped forward a little bit, approaching the MDA at 4,100 feet. And this time, once we are approaching Quebec November 611, we'll turn a left to fly around the mountain south of the airport. So just about overfly 611, and so we'll turn left and also starting a slow descent. So what I'll do now is I'm gonna bring up the MCDU, get to the progress page, and like I said before, now we can see the distance to the threshold of runway 05. All we're going to do now is we're going to stay clear of the mountain on the right hand side, and once we're past that we'll start a right turn and head towards the opposite side of the lake, and then we're going to pass Enkuf just to the southwest. So let me just switch off the GPWS systems so we don't get any false warnings. We are completely visual. Now we're gonna start the right turn, head towards the other side of the lake, and then we'll continue with the right turn, like I said, just southwest of Enkuf, and then we'll turn onto the final track. So now that we're about 4 miles from the threshold, 1200 feet above ground seems legit. And so we'll just continue a very shallow descent. Not too long from now we'll be able to see the runway, and then we should be able to see the poppies as well. And there we go. I would say 1 white, 3 red, so we'll have to adjust a little bit. So 3 miles, 1000 feet, that looks about right. Setting flaps full. Now we are on path, 2 white, 2 red, adjusting the descent rate. So reading the landing checklist, we have Ekamemo landing, no blue. So we just simply continue now on the 3-degree glide profile. Try to stabilize everything.
500. 400. 300, 200, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, retard 10, 5.
So a little bit long flare, but I didn't want to slam into the runway again. But anyhow, this was about the approach procedure, and so we did one approach, circling 2-3, and now the circling 0-5. So I'm sorry that it's taken a while for me to do this video. Nevertheless, I hope you've enjoyed it, and so I'll see you again in the next one. Until then, happy landings.